Greetings, Love Posse. Thank you for liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing to our channel. Today's message: you are not colored, Negro, Black, or African American. You are spirit. So many of you believe that you are colored, Negro, Black, or African American. These are social constructs. Before the 19th century, race, as we know it now, as we define it now, did not exist. It wasn't until the 16th century that the word race became a part of the English language, and it had nothing to do with sorting, categorizing people based on skin color, eyes, nose, hair texture, genetics. It wasn't until the 18th century that people, elite, began to see the benefit of categorizing people. And in the 19th century, the meaning that we use now to sort people in these idiotic boxes became the norm. So you are not colored, Negro, Black, or African American unless you identify with these things. And if you identify with these identifiers, then you'll identify with anything. It has nothing to do with Black. It has to do with the spiritual experience that you opted in to and for, that every human being has opted into and for. We are spirit. We come here for experiences, and the experiences are not always warm and fuzzy. We need contrast to help us to grow and expand. So before we came into these bodies, we chose the experiences we wish to have. We just don't remember. Those are in these bodies that look like me. In over 2,000 shades, we've chosen this experience. Human beings added the terminology for their benefit. The elite so-called white European created races to benefit, to maintain power by creating division. And all human beings opted into this fallacy, this distortion, this disgusting way of boxing in and categorizing human beings, spiritual beings. And we all agree to it. It's never worked because people have identified with it. So if you've identified with being colored, Negro, Black, or African American, then you've taken on the stereotype. You've embodied the stereotypes. You walk the stereotypes. You live the stereotypes. You have lived and held on to and still do the trauma of the experiences of being colored, Negro, Black, and African American. So the hurt you feel from the experience you're having that you've opted into but don't remember has caused trauma, has created anger and fear. The experience has created hurt. And the hurt is still there in our cellular memory. It's also created prejudice and hate. So you have to find a different way of looking at the experience. All human beings carry trauma in their cellular memory, are experiencing in this human experience, earth experience, in these bodies, which are just shells, our earth suits, trauma and hurt and pain, vulnerability, insecurity. We're not the only ones. We all are, whether human beings are speaking about it or not. It's there. This is not about condoning other people's behavior. This is not about allowing people to disrespect you and to mistreat you. This is about changing your consciousness so that you can live the life you want to live, so that you can live the life that God has for you. It's not about forgetting. It's about being able to forgive yourself. Forgive yourself for what you think you've done wrong. Because many people who are colored, Negro, Black, or African American blame themselves. That's where that self-hate comes from. When you see me, I remind you of the sin you think you've done. That's another topic, sin. They have you believing you sin. No, continue demanding to be treated like a human being. Continue marching and speaking out and standing for what you believe in. If you need to file lawsuits, file lawsuits. Band together and with other people, because that's what it's going to take. We can't do this on our own. It's going to take all of us, gays, Muslims, Christians, Jews, Asians, indigenous people, Latinos, all of us. I'm not saying that the behavior was not unloving, unkind, despicable, evil. But don't condemn groups of people like they've condemned us. It's going to take love. It's going to take healing. It's going to take the inner work. We'll continue as a group of people to stay stuck in the hurt, in the pain, in the past, if we don't change our consciousness. If we can't see that we're better than they have said we are, if we can't see that we're part of God's greatest miracle, then all is lost. Learn to love yourself. Learn to love your brothers and sisters that don't look like you. Learn to love Mother Earth. Not only were we conditioned to separate ourselves from each other, we have been conditioned to believe that we're separate from nature, from Mother Earth, from God. That's part of the problem. Many of you go to church and you believe you're separate from God. Even the most of the so-called Black ministers teach you that bullshit. That only they can talk to God, only they are connected to God, that you are separate from God. You've never been separate from God. You are a part of God. You are a part of God. You are a part of this greater consciousness that's challenging to understand. But I know for sure you're not colored, Negro, Black, or African American. You are spirit. Your spirit. You'll continue to stay where you are and not live your greatest potential if you continue to live in the narrative of colored, Negro, Black, and African American. That small, limited narrative. If you continue to live in the narrative of victim and believing that you do not have power or say so in creating your life. You're creating it every day, either consciously or unconsciously. So, from this experience, our experience in these bodies, our experience as colored, Negro, Black, and African American, the pain, the hurt, the trauma, the slavery still exists. If your mind is not free, then you're still experiencing slavery because now the government and these corporations are the masters. Your employers are the masters. And everyone's participating in the slavery. You're not the only slave in this modern plantation. Latinos and Hispanics and Asians and poor, middle class, so-called white people or women are also experiencing slave culture. And they knew this when they've created the races, that it would divide us because they wanted to conquer. They wanted to be in power. So they had to get you to believe that you were colored, Negro, Black, and African American. Because then, once you believed it, you would behave that way. You would have low self-esteem, not knowing who you are. No confidence in yourself. Playing a role, not knowing how to pull yourself out of it. And it's worked for them. Now it's time to wake up. I don't identify myself as colored, Negro, Black, or African American in the sense that I don't embody it. I may use the language because the majority of the world is still in the third dimension because it's time, you see. My friends tell me, Tiffany, the white man is still doing this to us. The white man this and the white man that. Why is the white man the focus? They're not even white. You see, they've been played too by the elite and powerful. They believe they're white. They believe they're superior. Truth is, the divine didn't create any superior. Man did, because of man's fear of their own weaknesses and fear of those who look differently than they do. You see, we've all been played. So now that the truth is coming forth in volumes, now that people are waking up consciously and understanding that we're all part of one consciousness, all equal, all interconnected, all reflections of each other. There's never been so-called white, so-called Asian, so-called Black, so-called Hispanic, Latinos, so-called Native American, indigenous people. We're all spirit. We're all life, interconnected. So it's time we stop buying into the lie. Do not identify, do not embody the illusion of race. You are spirit. And yes, as a group, encapsulated in this box by man's will, the will of the elite European. We don't have to remain in the box. We don't have to participate in the lie. We can begin anew. We can work to heal the trauma that people who look like us have endured. The hands of other people. Yes, it's still happening. I understand that. I've experienced it. But we have to stop this narrative, this story of being the victim. Because we are also the victimizers. And you know what I'm talking about. Many of you, most of you, and I won't include myself in that, but I see it, I witness it, I've observed it. You go to church on Sunday praising God. Once you leave the church, then you become the one discriminating, the one judging, the prejudiced one, the one of hatred towards gays, other people who look like you, Asians, Hispanics, Latinos, indigenous people. If you're a man, women, animals. So you're going to blame white people, so-called white people. They're not white. For all that's gone wrong in your life. What do you think gays and Asians, Hispanics, they can blame you for all that's gone wrong in their life? You don't want to be called the N-word, but you'll call them, I don't even want to say it, names. You don't want to be treated like nothing, like an animal, but that's what you do. They're taking our jobs. This is not their country. They're doing this, blah, 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 blah. And then you want to turn around and say, the white man is doing this to you while you're doing the same thing. You know better. But you try to be so self-righteous. Praising Jesus. You can't be like Jesus if you're going to treat people who don't look like you say you're being treated. It's hypocritical. I see it all the time. I have an uncle. I'm gay. And he denounced his own daughter along with my aunt because she's gay. And he said, well, the Bible says this. The Bible? Black people, so-called Black people, Africans, enslaved, brought to this country, didn't know the Bible until they got here. This wasn't your religion. It was your master's religion. And now you're going to quote it to oppress your own? You think you claiming to be so godly? You think God? That's not God. You're being a hypocrite. Speaking God in one side of your mouth and then hate for people who just want to be loved and love who they love. That's some bullshit. You act as if the white man is God. Again, another thing. Which God do you praise and worship? Which God do you follow? Man? Because that's how you behave. That's how you live your life. You see me and you turn around as if I'm invisible. Or you look down because you don't want to see your reflection. That's some psychological bullshit. Get some help. But Black people don't believe in therapy. Why not? You need some therapy. We all need therapy because we're all unconscious at different levels of unconsciousness, have all experienced trauma, are holding on to trauma. We need some therapy. We need some healing, some help. More than prayer. Prayer helps, but you need more than prayer. You need to talk about this shit. Stop hating yourself. Stop hating your brother and sisters that look like you. Stop hating your brothers and sisters from other countries, Muslims, Asians, Hispanics, Latinos. We're all going through this transformation, figuring out who we are. But we're damn sure not colored, Negro, Black, African American. Those are descriptors, labels. Those are limitations. Your spirit, you're greater than a limitation. Those are to confuse you and control you and to demonize you, make you think that you are small. And it's worked. See, I've moved beyond that. You have to move beyond that. You so-called Christians, you have to move beyond your self-righteousness. You're no better than people who are gay. You're no better than an atheist. You're no better than Jews or Muslims. You've just accepted a different ideology. And that's all it is. God is God. Man creates all these titles and labels and divisions and boxes. And you believe it. We've all believed it. But see, no. I know it's an illusion. I now know these are illusions, that these are experiences. I'm experiencing this lifetime in this body. I'm experiencing being Black or African American. I'm experiencing being a gay woman, lesbian. I'm experiencing being 5'3.5". I'm experiencing being 110 pounds. I'm experiencing being a spiritual teacher, like I experiencing eating chocolate ice cream. I am spirit. You are spirit. It's like India Arie saying, I am not my hair, I'm not the skin, I'm not your expectations of me, I'm the soul within. You are the soul within. You are your so-called white brother and sister. You are your so-called Asian brother and sister. You are your so-called Hispanic, Latino brother and sister. You are your so-called indigenous brother and sisters. We are different forms of one consciousness. We have to stop displacing the hurt. We've experienced hurt and trauma from these experiences of colored, Negro, Black, and African American. The hurt and trauma of slavery, the hurt and trauma of not being seen and heard, the hurt and trauma of discrimination, the hurt and trauma of the lynchings and the beatings and the dehumanizing. But we cannot displace the hurt and trauma on other groups of people, on animals, on the environment, on each other, on ourselves. And we cannot project the hurt and trauma on other groups of people, on each other, on ourselves, on Mother Earth. Then you know better than those who you call the other, who are your brothers and sisters, those you say have traumatized you. Then you know better. We're all equal. We're all equal in the eyes of the divine. We've been given free will. We're all participating in this mess. But it takes you individually to grow and expand, to be the change you want to see in the world. You have to take on a different mindset and perspective. You have to see the illusions. You have to accept the truth. You hanging on, believing in the Bible. It's a book. A book mostly of parables. The truth is the truth. Written 150 years to 200 years after the death of Christ. And all these versions created by men wanting to be in control, writing these things down in a book, and you are believing them and still believing without questioning. Without questioning, you're volunteering to be a slave. God gives us intelligence, our own brain. We can question, we can research, but you're blindly believing. Stop blaming these people. They did what they did. They did what they did. We can't go back. We can change. We can change. We can do our best to forgive. They won't ever be able to make up for it. But they can change. We can change. They are us. We are them. You have to get to a place where you consciously understand that. You're fighting yourself. They're fighting themselves. We're all a part of the same consciousness. They may not get it. You know, I interact with people all the time. Don't get me, don't get what I'm saying. And I understand that. I understand it. It's okay. Because there are people farther on the path than I am. I may not get what they're saying, but you know what? Every day I pray and ask for more consciousness. I do my best to live consciously. I do the inner work to see we are all participating in this false reality. So, you are not colored, Negro, Black, or African American. You are spirit. You're spirit. Even the food, soul food, that's made up. Do your research. It's made up. Stop hanging on to these illusions and then using them as excuses not to be the best version of yourself, not to do better. I know it's challenging, it's hard, it's difficult to move past what has happened, but you have to, because you're responsible for your own health and well-being. You're responsible for your own education. You're responsible for your own life. Stop giving your power away. Stop accepting crumbs. Stop believing the worst about yourself and each other and other people. Stop thinking you know everything about God. Because you don't. I don't. No one does. God's Spirit is continuously evolving. And so are we. We're evolving together. So we'll never fully know everything about each other, about God. In this form, I believe when we cross over. Stop being so self-righteous. You're doing the same thing to other people that you claim the white man is doing to you and has done to you. Stop consuming so much, trying to fit in a false world that wants you to be a slave, that wants you to play it small, that wants to control you. Stop accepting. I've heard this. I'm voting for the lesser of two evils. Have you noticed yet that it doesn't matter whether Republicans or Democrats are in party, that you still don't get shit? Even President Obama didn't help you. And I understand, because if he had have done more or anything for people who look like him, the elite, the so-called white people, would have been outraged. He had to play it strategically, but the truth is the truth. He didn't help us. These people are unconscious. They're our brothers and sisters, but they're unconscious. And we're all unconscious at a different level. But they're at that level still of controlling the masses. Most people have been conditioned. I was conditioned. I believe this, that your vote counts. I no longer believe that because I see the truth. Your vote counts in the sense that it helps to elect someone, but it doesn't count in the sense of power. The elite, the corporations, the government they work for the corporations, whether they Democrat, Republican, they have the power. You give them the power with your vote because you have opted into their narrative. Conquer and divide. We have to come together. You have to wake up. Stop identifying and believing that who you are is colored, Negro, Black, and African American. And begin to know that you are spirit. Thank you for your time. I love you. The divine God loves you. You are loved. Namaste. Namaste.